Welcome back to Apex to Mug. In this episode, let's look at what the fuel injector is. A fuel injector is an electromagnetic device that sprays precise amount of fuel into the intake airstream or the combustion chamber. It is a key component in fuel injection system that replaces traditional carburetors in modern motorcycles and cars. Let's now deep dive into the construction of a fuel injector. Typically, a port type injector consists of the following components: a injector body, which is usually made of metal or composite, houses the internal components. A solenoid coil, an electromagnetic coil that creates a magnetic field when energized. A plunger or a pintle needle. Attached to the solenoid, this needle moves up and down to operate or close the fuel nozzle. Nozzle or orifice. Precisely machined outlet that atomizes the fuel into a fine mist. Fuel filter basket, a small mesh filter at the inlet to prevent clogging by debris. O-rings and seals are the simple rubber components to seal the injector at both ends, one to the fuel rail and the other to the intake manifold. Let's now look at the fuel injector working. Fuel is supplied by the fuel pump to the injector at regulated pressure, which is typically around 2.5 to 3.5 bar. The ECU sends an electrical pulse to the solenoid. The magnetic field lifts a plunger needle, opening the nozzle. Pressurized fuel sprays through the nozzle into the intake port or the manifold. And when the signal stops, the spring forces the plunger down, closing the injector. The duration of the pulse, called the pulse width, controls the amount of fuel injected. And now is the time to look at the failure modes of a fuel injector. Usually, a clogged nozzle is caused by dirt, varnish, or carbon deposit clogging the pores of the injector, which would lead to poor throttle response, misfiring, and rough idling. A leaking injector may be a cause of a worn pintle or a seal leak fuel constantly, which leads to rich mixture, black smoke, fuel smell, and hard starting. Fuel injectors may also face electrical failure due to coil burnout or internal short, which would eventually lead to a dead cylinder or an engine misfire. If there is a weak spray pattern, the automation gets affected, which increases the emissions and leads to poor performance. Physical damages like the O-ring damages also seal leaks the air or fuel, which also leads to fuel leak, vacuum leak, and poor running. Well, with a little awareness on what could go wrong, let's also look at the diagnosis and testing. We have a ohm test where we use a multimeter. Typical resistance is measured, which is usually between 10 to 16 ohms for a high impedance injector. There is also a click test. Listen for the clicking sound with the stethoscope or a screwdriver, which confirms activation. Certain tests also require a fuel spray test where the injector is removed and connected to a bench or a bike tester and the spray pattern is checked. Leak tests are also done to observe the injector with pressurized fuel and ignition off. No drip should occur. Certain causes or the certain issues may also be diagnosed using a ECU or a OBD scan, where we scan for misfire codes, fuel trim issues, especially the P codes. Now let's look at the solutions and rectification. Use injector cleaner and additives for deep cleaning. You may also remove and ultrasonically clean them if you have a clogged injector. If there is a leaking nozzle, all you have to do is replace the injector. Internal wear is not repairable. If you come across a dead coil, confirm with ohm test, replace the injector if the coil is open. In case of a faulty spray pattern, clean or replace. Sometimes carbon fouling alters the spray. Physical damages such as damaged seals or O-rings, all you have to do is replace the rubber components, lubricate them before installing. If there is a ECU signal issue, check wiring harness continuity, test the injector driver circuit in ECU. There are certain preventive tips which you may follow to keep your fuel injector healthy. Always use a high quality fuel to reduce clogging. Avoid long storage with fuel in the system, which causes varnish deposits. Periodically use injector cleaner additives, usually which is done between 3000 to 5000 kilometers. Inspect the fuel filter regularly. Dirty filters can increase the injector strain. And always remember to not dry crank the injectors. Always prime the fuel system first. Motorcycles often use single point injection or one injector per cylinder. KTM, Yamaha, Honda all use single resistance high impedance injectors. Some of the smaller displacement engines use throttle body injection where the injector is mounted just after the throttle valve. Performance tuners may replace injectors with high flow rate ones when they are modifying the ECU maps. And that's it for now. Do drop us your comment if you feel that something could be better on the briefing. Stay tuned, subscribe to Apex to Mark.